Hello and welcome along to the industry analysis for the operational case study of May 2019. Here we're going to be looking at the real-world vitamins, minerals and supplements industry, or the dietary supplements industry broadly speaking. This really is a fascinating industry from a number of different perspectives, but it is an intimidating thing to research if you're going it alone. And so what we've done for you here is we have distilled the real-world industry down into its most important features, some of the key trends, facts and figures, and presented to you here in this industry analysis. So before we begin, let me just give you a quick overview of what we'll be covering in this industry analysis. We're going to start with a quantitative analysis of this market. We'll be looking at some growth trends and projections for the coming years. We're then going to move into the actual products themselves. We're going to be looking at the science behind these products, which is very interesting in itself, and the manufacturing and synthesis process behind the productions of vitamins, minerals, and various dietary supplements. We're going to break it down into the different product categories corresponding to those that you will have seen in the pre-scene, and we're going to be looking at how this pans out in the real world and some interesting science behind it. From there, then we're going to move into the marketing side of things. We're going to be looking at various features of the market in terms of things like consumer segments. We're also going to look at some issues, very interesting issues, surrounding some myths which pertain to this industry. It is an industry which has a lot of myths and kind of misinformation surrounding it, and we're going to clarify a lot of that for you in section 3 and talk a little bit as well there about the implications of those myths from a marketing and from an advertising perspective. Moving then on to the related area of regulations within this industry and some of the legal issues surrounding the VMS or dietary supplements industry. From there then we're going to look at some opportunities presented in the current industry and also some key trends for 2019. We're going to be looking at a very interesting video from a recent trade show which gives some good insights into some of the real world companies and what they foresee as being some of the key changes ahead in 2019. And of course, we're going to look at some threats as well, and there are several. Finally, then, we are looking in section 6 at some theoretical applications and implications within the industry. We're going to be applying some important models, especially from the enterprise pillar, seeing how they could be used to illustrate some features of this industry, and we'll be guiding you through a number of important models and theories in that section. Before we completely wrap up, we will be going through a couple of real-world companies that I think are very interesting. If you want to look at them further in your own time, see what kinds of things that they're up to, you can do so, of course. Here we just give you a very brief rundown of some of those key real-world companies, and indeed we make a case that one of them is possibly a template for the pre-scene company that you're presented with in this OCS for May 2019. We also have sources at the end of this presentation which you can look at in your own time. These are all the sources that we have relied on in our industry analysis, and again, you can look at these in your own time if you want to do a little bit of a deep dive on any of the distinct sections or categories that we have covered. Okay, so let's get right into it. We're going to start with the quantitative market analysis, and we're looking here at growth projections for the coming 5 to 6 years. This is from 2016 to 2022 for the global dietary supplement market. And you can see here currently, and this is a broad definition of the dietary supplement market, you will find as you look through the real world industry various kinds of definitions of this market. Some will call it the vitamins, minerals and supplements market, others just the vitamins industry, and some others will call it then the dietary supplement market. And depending on which definition you go with, it will take in more or less product types. Here we've decided to go with the broadest definition, which is the global dietary supplement market, which takes in things like sports nutrition and performance supplements as well. So here we have $132 billion for the global market in 2016 was the estimate, and that is projected to grow quite healthily, it has to be said, to a $220 billion by the year 2022. So this certainly is a market that is still growing and will continue to grow for the next 5 or 6 years. Looking at the breakdown of the market in terms of market share per region, this is quite an interesting little chart here, and you'll note that actually it is the Asia Pacific market which is the largest market for this industry in terms of the share. That's in terms of absolute numbers as well, of course. And it is a huge, of course, geographical region, but many people mistakenly assume that the North American market is the biggest in terms of the share of the global market. But actually it is the Asian Pacific region, which is interesting because remember, of course, where your pre-seen company is located. It is indeed in a very strategic location with that in mind. Now, North America comes in second. Obviously, North America is always going to be a major player, but it is second to the Asia Pacific region. And then third, perhaps unsurprisingly, we have Europe. Now, looking at the European market, just to give you a sense of the country by country breakdown, there is one very interesting anomaly in the European context, and that is Italy. Italy is way out in front in terms of the value of the dietary supplements market, and this is here a projection to 2020, and it's looking at the recorded figures from 2015, and you can see Italy is projected to grow healthily from 2015 to 2020. But it really is interesting just to note that how far out ahead Italy is of many of the other major European countries. And that is something that many theorists and analysts, I should say, have been trying to get a handle on. What is the source of this Italian obsession with dietary supplements and why is it such a big market there? There are a number of different theories as to why that is the case. We're not going to get too bogged down in them for the moment, though. What I did want to just draw your attention to was how interesting it is that Italy is this anomaly within the European context. And if you're looking at just individual countries in terms of per capita consumption of dietary supplements, Italy is way out in front. And so that's an interesting little tidbit to bear in mind as you proceed through your industry analysis and indeed your pre-seen analysis. So you can see here other countries are much more modest in terms of their consumption rates. Russia is second, Germany in third, United Kingdom fourth, and France in fifth. Those five are quite considerably far ahead of the other regions in terms of the value of the dietary supplements market in the European context, broadly speaking. Now we look at the US market, which is always, of course, going to be a very important market. But this is just to give you a sense of the breakdown of the different categories within this dietary supplements market, broadly speaking. And of course, the trends, you will find similar trends in other regions broadly. They are in line with the United States. So you can see vitamins in terms of the share of the market, the total market of dietary supplements is significantly ahead of the other categories. In second place, you have botanicals, followed by amino acids. And amino acids, that's just a technical term which incorporates mostly sports nutrition and sports supplements. So things like protein powders and glutamine and BCAAs. You're going to hear a lot of these different jargon terms, but basically they are different types of proteins. Then you have minerals, enzymes, and then others is in that final category. So we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about each of these categories and product types in turn as we proceed through the industry analysis. So don't worry too much about that for now. If you're a little bit confused about the difference, say for example, between minerals and vitamins or minerals and botanicals, we'll be explaining all of that in due course. Now here's an interesting little chart for consumer perspectives. We're going to come back to consumers in more detail in the next section, but for now I just want to look at this particular issue of reasons for supplement use amongst supplement users. This is taken from 2016, but the reasons remain largely the same in recent years. And we can see here the biggest reason, the most popular reason for why people use supplements given is overall health and wellness benefits. Now we're going to come back to all of these reasons a little bit later on in more detail, and especially in the section on myths, because I think there is a lot of misunderstanding and indeed ignorance in this industry and market when it comes to the actual benefits of vitamins, minerals, and various dietary supplements. Energy then is in second place at 30%. Again, another very interesting point, which we'll come back to. Filling in nutrition gaps in my diet is another important point, and again, we'll come back to that a little bit later on as well. And then immune health and bone health in fourth and fifth place. Here's another interesting percentage breakdown. This is most popular dietary supplements among supplement users. In other words, we're looking at what kinds of products or product categories are most used by those who actually use dietary supplements. And you can see way out in front is the multivitamin. 75% of supplement users report using a multivitamin. And again, this is going to have very important implications when we come back to those myths, issues, and various other issues surrounding these product types a little bit later on. Just bear that in mind for now. 75% multivitamins. We'll come back to that later. And then you got vitamin D in second place, vitamin C in third place, calcium and vitamin B complexes then in fifth. Benefit claims of recent product launches. So these are new products that were launched in the years 2013 and 2014, and we're looking at the increase from year to year. There's one very interesting outlier in terms of increases and another interesting decrease, which we'll look at here, and those trends have actually increased in recent years. So no additives, preservatives, this is the most popular claim. We're going to come back to this very later on, very important point relating to the issue of what's called the appeal to nature and what the basis for that is. So no additives and preservatives, this is a claim that's more commonly used than any other claim when it comes to vitamin and minerals and supplement products on the market. In second place was herbal and botanical, but that has declined, as you can see, in 2014, and continues its decline. We're looking then in third place previously in 2013 was the low or no reduced allergens claims, but they have increased to 45% there in terms of new launches. But more or less, there's the top three. You can see no additives, preservatives, botanical and herbals, and reduced allergens. Then you have vegetarian, gluten-free. Antioxidants is an interesting outlier in terms of the percentage of growth from one year to the next. That continues to be a popular claim for product launches and for existing products on the market. The antioxidant, of course, is an important benefit of these kinds of products, and we'll come back to that again a little bit later on as well. So let's start looking at these products, and this is quite interesting. If you have any kind of scientific interest, you'll find this fascinating. You may actually already know a lot of this stuff yourself. If you're not interested in science, I assure you, don't worry too much. This is quite easy to understand, and I think it is actually genuinely an interesting area as well. So let's get into it. We're looking here at the different product categories, broadly speaking. There are 5 kind of subcategories within this industry, and you'll have seen in your pre-scene as well that it corresponds more or less to what we've got here. So from those that decide to supplement their diets, 98% choose vitamins and minerals, with 73%, and that was, as I said, around 73-75% taking multivitamins, making it the most popular supplement overall. So you can see here the breakdown. You got vitamins/minerals in the same category at 98%, specialty at 49%, herbals, botanicals 39%, sports nutrition 29%, weight management 19%. This is the percentages you're looking at here are the percentage of people who use dietary supplements overall, who use the different subcategories within the dietary supplements market. Okay, so you can see vitamins and minerals are way out ahead. They're the most popular amongst people who use dietary supplements, broadly speaking. And as we saw, the multivitamin at 73% there, vitamin D at 37%. Next in line comes specialty. So these are kind of specific use or products targeted towards addressing certain needs. You have omega-3, the most popular within this category. You have probiotics, which are associated with digestive benefits, and fiber as well, of course, is associated with proper functioning of the digestive tract. Then herbals and botanicals at 39%. You have things like teas and cranberry, turmeric there at 9%. Sports nutrition then at 29%, less than a third of the market, with proteins the major product in that category. And then you have things for weight management at 19%. Again, protein is associated with that, and various other kinds of products. So that gives you an overview of the segmentation within this market in terms of the products. Now we're going to focus in on the 4 most important categories, broadly speaking. The first being vitamins. So what are vitamins? Well, a vitamin, simply put, is an organic molecule or a related set of molecules that is an essential micronutrient that an organism needs That's an important point there. Needs, necessary in small quantities for the proper functioning of its metabolism. Okay, so the metabolism is basically how an organism transfers or transforms, I should say, things that it ingests into energy. Essential nutrients cannot be synthesized in the organism either at all or not in sufficient quantities, and therefore must be obtained through the diet. So in other words, most vitamins cannot actually be created by the body itself, and so they have to be taken in from the environment in the form of food. The term vitamin does not include three other groups of essential nutrients, that is minerals, essential fatty acids, and essential amino acids. So just important to remember, vitamin is a distinct category. It doesn't include minerals, it doesn't include fatty acids like omega-3, and it does not include things like amino acids, which I mentioned are proteins. So just bear that in mind as you're moving forward, not to confuse and conflate the different product types. So here we have vitamins, how they're made. We're looking at the different processes involved. Vitamins can be derived from plant or animal products or produced synthetically in a laboratory. So important to remember, broadly speaking, there are two different ways of deriving vitamins. There's the natural way from plants and animal products, and the unnatural or inorganic way or synthetic way within a laboratory. Vitamin A, for example, can be derived from fish liver oil, and vitamin C, as you probably already know, from various kinds of citrus fruits. However, this is important to note, most commercial vitamins are actually made from synthetic vitamins, which are cheaper and easier to produce than natural derivatives. So think about it, really, perhaps unsurprising, considering the amount of waste that would be involved if these companies were to rely exclusively on real natural products. They're using actual synthetically derived vitamins, ones that are produced in specialized laboratories, to be able to produce these vitamins en masse. Whereas if they were to rely on these food products, they would end up with a lot of food waste, throwing out the bulk of the food itself and only using the minuscule amounts of vitamins, relatively speaking, that are found in those food products. So when you think about it from that perspective, I guess it makes sense, but also, of course, from a cost perspective, not just from a wastage perspective. So how vitamins are made: vitamin A may be synthesized from something called acetone, and vitamin C from keto acid. So this is in the laboratory context. This is the way that some of these popular vitamins are made. They're synthesized, is the word that they use, from various other elements within the laboratory setting. There's no chemical difference, and this is important to note as well. There's no actual chemical difference between the purified vitamins derived from actual plant or animal sources and those produced synthetically in these laboratories. Different labs may use different techniques to produce synthetic vitamins, as many can be derived from various chemical reactions. But the most important thing to take away from all this is that when it comes to the actual makeup or the chemical makeup of the vitamins that you get from natural sources on the one hand and from laboratory sources on the other hand, if you're talking about the pure isolated vitamin, there is actually no difference there. So an important note here, which you may have actually inferred from what I've just been saying: typically in this industry, specialized laboratories produce purified vitamins and minerals. A distributor then buys these from the laboratories and sells them to manufacturers, who put them together in different compounds, such as multivitamin tablets or B-complex capsules. So in the context of the pre-scene document, there actually wasn't much said about these specialized laboratories in terms of the suppliers for a company like Vitamine, and it's not clear at all whether or not they actually source their vitamins from an outside or external supplier or a distributor, or if they actually produce their own in-house. This is not mentioned. It starts from the manufacturing stage of actually putting the compounds together into tablet forms and various other forms, but it doesn't mention actually where they source those vitamins and minerals. So that's something to bear in mind for your exam in May. Minerals then are a distinct category from vitamins. They're inorganic, unlike the organic molecules mentioned for vitamins, making their chemical form more simple than that of vitamins. So vitamins tend to have a more complex form than minerals. Minerals such as iron and copper can be found in soil and rock. Important to note as well that only some minerals are required for nutrition. A small subset, in fact, of minerals are required for nutrition. Examples of such minerals include calcium, chromium, copper, iodine, iron, and magnesium, and there are some others as well. So how are minerals derived? What is the mode of accessing these minerals? Minerals and trace elements are already mainly found in meat, cereals, fish, milk, and dairy foods, some vegetables, dried fruit, and nuts. So they already do occur in natural foods. Trace elements can be found in them, and usually trace elements are sufficient. Minerals can also be bioengineered by bacteria, interestingly enough, which acts on metals and catalyze mineral dissolution and precipitation. You don't need to worry too much about the details of the jargon there. All you need to know is that bacteria can be used in a laboratory setting to react with certain kinds of metals in order to produce the required minerals. Therefore, as with vitamins, the derivation process can be from existing food sources or via laboratory methods such as that bioengineering that I mentioned. Now we move on to herbals/botanicals. So what are botanicals? A botanical is, simply put, a plant or plant part valued for its medicinal or therapeutic properties or flavour and or scent. So all of those different uses and claims correspond to botanicals. It could be for any one of those or all of those together that it is demanded and purchased. Bear in mind, herbs are actually a subset of botanicals. So botanicals is the broad category and herbs are one type of botanical that you can get. Botanicals are sold in many forms, so as fresh or dried products, liquid or solid extracts, tablets, capsules, powders, tea bags indeed would be considered a type of herbal product as well. So how are herbal and botanicals derived? A particular group of chemicals or a single chemical may be isolated from a botanical and sold as a dietary supplement, usually in tablet or capsule form. A tincture, nice little word there, is made by soaking a botanical in a solution of alcohol and water. Tinctures are sold as liquids and are used for concentrating and preserving a botanical. An extract then is slightly different. It's made by soaking the botanical in a liquid that removes specific types of chemicals. The liquid can be used as is or, interestingly, evaporated to make a dry extract for use in capsules or tablets. So you can see there, herbals and botanicals are a very diverse and versatile kind of dietary supplement, and they can come in many, many different forms, shapes, and sizes. And finally, we come to the essential fatty acids category. This is including things like omega-3s and omega-6, fatty acids that humans and other animals must ingest because the body requires them, again, necessary for good health, but it cannot produce or synthesize them itself internally. So again, necessary to acquire them through the diet. Some of the food sources of essential fatty acids are fish and shellfish, flaxseed, or also known as linseed, hemp seed, olive oil, soya oil, canola or rapeseed oil, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, leafy vegetables, and walnuts. So several different sources, and there are others. Essential fatty acids should not be confused with essential oils. Just an interesting terminological note here so that you don't get confused, which are essential, that is those essential oils, in the sense of being a concentrated essence. Okay, so you might think of a vanilla essence, for example, is simply just a concentrated form of vanilla. So essential fatty acids are essential not because they have been concentrated or anything like that, but rather because they are necessary for the proper functioning of the human metabolism. So we look at essential fatty acids, I should say, in terms of the modes of derivation and how they're acquired. Currently, essential fatty acids are derived from the aforementioned natural food sources, and for this reason they tend to be more expensive or costly than vitamins and minerals, and indeed the price tag reflects that. The reason, of course, is because this is the only way that is currently scalable on an industrial level to derive essential fatty acids is actually by extracting them from those natural food sources. Although much progress has been made recently in the use of what's called metabolic engineering, I should say, of microbes for the production of fatty acid-derived chemicals, This has a suboptimal product yield. In other words, it's not sufficiently large in terms of output to make it economic and scalable to an industrial and commercial level. Productivities render these platforms far from reaching large-scale commercial exploitation. So despite the fact that in principle, at least, and in theory, these things can be derived from laboratory processes of metabolic engineering of microbes, that's not at sufficient scale yet to actually be introduced commercially.